And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Tom T. Moore, award-winning author who writes about angels, ETs, Atlantis, and more. Tom, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Tom, how did you get into all this stuff in the first place?
Goes back a long time ago. I used to own a snow ski club, believe it or not, and I one day I was reading the Dallas Morning News, and there was this astrologer from uh, from Texas, from the Dallas area, and he said that the Dallas Cowboys were not going to the Super Bowl that year, but they were going the next year. And I said, "Gosh, I've never read that." So I tore the article out of the Dallas Morning News and stuck it in my desk. And at the end of the football season, I dragged it out, and he had hit on about 80% of the reasons why they weren't going. So a year in advance, I reserved 300 airline seats to Miami, and eventually became the first tour operator in the Dallas area to ever run a trip to the Super Bowl. So I didn't know how that worked, but I said, I better learn more about astrology. So I started reading up of it. I never became an astrologer. I started having all our ski club parties with Venus trying Mars or whatever, and that's and the ski club grew, and eventually I had a travel agency, and that grew into an international wholesale tour company where 3,000 travel agents were selling our tours nationwide. So that was just kind of the start. Along the way, about 1979 or so, um, my my wife and I were were scheduling a trip to Manila for a World Congress of Travel Agents, and so I had just started recording dreams at that time. And about 2 weeks after I started recording dreams, I had this very, very vivid dream of an explosion with a woman and some men involved. And it was so vivid that we canceled Manila and added days to Hong Kong and Taipei. And sure enough, on the first day of the World Congress, terrorists exploded a bomb in the front of the hall, injuring 10 travel agents. And they arrested a woman and 4 men. And so after that, I said, "Gosh, I'm going to record my dreams the rest of my life," which I have. And so then we zoom along several years, and I was reading an article in the Sedona Journal of Emergence, sort of like this one, if we can. For some reason, it fades out on this camera. But anyway, um, and in it, a man by the name of Robert Shapiro was channeling a creator being by the name of Zosh. And so Zosh said, "You can request benevolent outcomes in your life." And I said, "Well, that's kind of interesting," because I'd tried the law of attraction. That didn't work very well. And I kept looking for something better. And so I started experimenting uh, with this benevolent outcomes, and it worked perfectly. I mean, I couldn't believe how great it worked. And so I expanded. I came up with a saying where you could say, "I request the most benevolent outcome for blank, blank, blank. Thank you." And and I would say these out loud which turned out to be the really important thing. And so I wound up writing stories about this for the Sedona Journal, and eventually became one of their columnists, with over 200 of my columns in the Sedona Journal. So time kind of goes on. I even had a channeling by Robert Shapiro, and he channeled a being by the name of Reveals the Mysteries, an Indian shaman. And so the Indian shaman, I said, well, is my sole contract to support Robert's work? And Reveals the Mystery said, no, it's not. And I thought that was really strange. So another couple of years went by, and my wife and I were going to a seminar that was put on by Dick Sutphin, Sutphin.
I remember him. He's from a
Yeah,
long time ago.
yeah. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he was having a seminar on improving your psychic abilities. So we went to that, and he was putting us under 2 or 3 times a day, to the point where, wow, it was felt like you'd had a whole bottle of wine by the end of the day. You were so spaced out. And on the second day, he was going to put us under and have us automatic write. And so I thought at that time, well, I'm going to try seeing if I can contact Reveals the Mysteries and find out why he says that I'm that's not my sole contract. And so he put us under, and I said, Reveals the Mysteries, are you there? And he said, yes, I am, Tom. And I said, oh, wow, that's great. And so I went on, and lo and behold, I was uh, I was saying, hey, why is it that I'm not supporting his work? And Reveal said, Tom, he said, you have reincarnated or incarnated into this time period, and you're uh, you're you have reincarnated for the reason that you want to reintroduce people to the gentle way. And the very first time I ever communicated with Reveals the Mysteries, I got the name of my first book. So that was the beginning. And he said, and he went on to tell me, he said, you're going to write books. I said, no, I'm a business guy. I was planning, I was in the film and TV distribution business. I was planning to do that till I retired. And and so I said, no, that's not really my thing. And he said, books. So I said, well, okay. And so I wrote my first book within 90 or 100 days, called The Gentle Way. And uh, so that's kind of how it started. And uh, it continued on from there.
Is it just that easy to manifest in your life? I mean, you just have to say out loud, I would like a benevolent outcome on A, B, or C?
Yes, according to your soul contract. You have to understand, everyone before you were born agreed on what your soul contract or your soul path would be for this life. That would be the best learning, the most challenges, the most successes, whatever that happened to be. But you have what's called free will. And the problem with free will is that it can allow you to take another path that will not be as good as the path that you should try and stay on. So one of the things I teach everyone is to say out loud, I request a most benevolent outcome to stay on my soul contract the rest of my life. And you do. So that's very important, because it's the most learning that you can get out of this life.
You said to request the most benevolent outcome to stay on the soul contract. What if we signed up for a soul contract that involves a lot of suffering? It doesn't
That's
seem benevolent in a way.
well, but you get through it. Now, keep in mind, I give people a way to make the challenges easier. Um, in my weekly free newsletter, which people can find at www.thegentlewaybook.com, 900 of are archived on my website. Um, I I have a benevolent prayer that I say every single day, and it goes something like, I ask any and all beings to aid and assist anyone that I've ever harmed, either physically, mentally, morally, spiritually, or emotionally, in any past, present, or future lives. And I ask that any and all beings come to the aid and comfort of the families and friends of anyone that I've ever harmed in any way, in any past, present, or future life. Now, my guardian angel Theo says, Tom, this is the very first time in all your lives on earth that you have ever figured out to say that. And and if you say that every single day, it will make uh, your past lives, your future lives, your present lives, it will make them easier, um, and your uh, you won't have to have as hard of challenges. The challenges will be easier to get past.
We find that prayer on your newsletter.
Yes,
All right. I need to look that
and
up.
and also on the website. Uh, you go to signs and you can print out the prayer and just hang it up and say that every morning. Uh, Theo, my guardian angel Theo says this is the most important prayer that you could possibly say that will ease all the challenges, not only of the present life, but the future life and even past lives, because all of these lives on earth are going on at the same time. And that's hard for people to understand.
How often should you request a benevolent outcome to your soul contract?
Saying that one time to stay on your soul contract, that's all you need. You
Okay.
only need to say a benevolent requested, a most benevolent request one time. But if you want to say it multiple times, Theo says, don't worry, Tom. We don't penalize you. If it makes you feel better, you can say it. You can say it multiple times for whatever you need, whether it's you know, something mundane like driving to work or a parking space close to the door of a restaurant or whatever it happens to be, a seat on a bus or a subway. Uh, when you say those, you can request a benevolent outcomes, and that's okay.
How does somebody discover what their soul contract is?
Even for me, and I've been there are many things that have been hinted about, but even for me, um, they don't give me everything. They'll only kind of hint. So, as an example, when I started, um, one day I was talking to Theo about some ruins on the other side of the world, and he said, "Oh, an ET is going to show you those." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, he's monitoring our conversation." And I thought I'm having a, uh confidential or whatever conversation with my own guardian angel, and it turns out, it's like what they used to call in the old days a party line, where several uh, farms would have one telephone line between them, and so so I was really, shocked that this could actually happen. And Theo said, "Do you want to talk to him now?" And I said, "No, no. Let me think of some questions, and I'll come back in a couple of weeks." And so that's what I did. And so that's how how who I found out his name is Santura, and I found out that he's part of my soul cluster. Now, a soul cluster means the soul fragments from your soul that are having lives on Earth. Typically, a soul will have anywhere from 6 to 12 fragments of itself having lives on Earth, and typically those lives on Earth will be about 600 to 800 on average. So um, that's what, and each one of those fragments has a different soul interest. So, as an example, Antura, the my ET buddy, um, uh, his he's had 800 lives on Earth so far, with an interest in exploration and designing villages and towns from their very start. So that's his sole interest. Where my sole interest is um, are religions and also being advisor to world leaders. So those are my two sole interests. So everybody has different soul interests so that the souls get the biggest bang for their bucks when they have lives on Earth. At the same time, they may be having 500,000 to a million lives all across the universe for their learning. So souls are much more, um, dynamic, much greater uh, in their capabilities than we typically imagine, the guy in It's a Wonderful Life who's trying to ring the bell.
Do we all have guardian angels? And if so, how do we contact them?
Everyone does have what we call guardian angels. These are actually what are called golden light beings. Okay, and a a golden the creator of our uh, universe knew that uh, we needed to have help. Okay, and so the uh, creator uh, put out a call for golden light beings, and these are very, very old souls that have spent thousands, if not millions of years, getting to the point where they've raised their vibrational levels to the point where they glow a golden light and are called golden light beings, but we wouldn't know what they are if we don't say guardian angels. But that's what they are. Creator put out a call for golden light beings to help us in these lives. And Theo happened to be the very, very first one that volunteered.
You mentioned that you're also having a telepathic communication or a download
Mm-hmm.
with this being named Antura, I believe.
Antura, Antura. I hope that's
Are you
took me a while to get that name.
are you still having contact with him? And if so, has he revealed to you like what the ETs are up to, and are we going to have full disclosure anytime soon?
Yeah, well, part of my uh, soul contract with him is that let's see, how can I explain it? Um, part of part of my soul contract and it shocked me as much as it would shock anybody. Antura told me that I am I and my family are going to come up to his mothership, and we're going to have free reign for 14 days to shoot anything for uh, on their mothership. Now, this mothership is on the outside is 3 miles wide and 20 stories tall. It has a crew of 1,600, I'm sorry, 900, with their families totaling 1,600. And they're from 37 different planets. And they're up there only 50 miles above us, taking millions of scientific readings every single day as part of what's called the Earth experiment. And the Creator created the Earth experiment because he wanted to see if negative energies could be worked with. There's 4 negative energies, but our universe and the trillions of other universes were all created in the 10 positive energies. And our scientists have no clue yet that there are 4 negative energies. And so Creator created a special space-time continuum that surrounds our solar system, consisting of nothing but these 4 negative energies, and asked for souls to volunteer to have lives on Earth and work, knowing that they would be shielded, veiled from knowing of all the thousands of lives that we've had on other planets before we volunteered for the Earth experiment.
What are those 4 negative energies?
We don't know. I've had a number of my readers guess, and everybody has been off except for the latest one that said, "What about resistance?" And and Theo said, "Well, that's close." So that's as close as we've gotten. I'm thinking I'm going to ask about compression next, maybe, because when you go inside Antura's spaceship, it's big enough on the outside, 3 miles wide. But when you go on the inside, for whatever reason, they operate within the 10 positive energies, and it's 15 miles wide with 11 decks, and 2 of the decks are like open. It would seem like they're open. They're like parks, and they're like 12 miles long, so that the crew can get out in these 2 spaces and enjoy sort of an openness instead of being, in corridors and things like that.
Have you been on the ship?
No, not yet.
So this is just what he's revealed to you.
Yes, and it should have happened like over a year ago. And I got to the point where in April I said, because he kept saying soon, soon, soon. I got so tired of hearing that word. I finally said, at the end of April, I'm going to stop talking to you because I can't stand to hear the word soon from you anymore. And so I only recently was kind of forced to start asking a couple of questions. In fact, in my next newsletter, I have probably 10 or so that I'll be putting out this week, where there were questions that I had to ask that he could answer. And so he keeps saying, even, he won't use the word for soon, but it's supposedly pretty soon. And I stopped talking to him in protest for the captain of his ship, that said, he was a numbers guy, and he said half the world has to believe in ETs before you can come on board. And so, this was a protest against the captain. Well, lo and behold, I had a dream just a couple of nights ago where a captain of a ship, I thought it was like a cruise ship or whatever, came to my table to have 2 photos taken with me. And I'm wondering, is that a little sign that it's getting closer? I don't know. We'll find out. I haven't asked him. I'll ask that question in my next session, if that was the captain coming in.
What type of alien is he?
Well, Antura is an amphibian. Okay, but keep in mind, there are all different types of aliens just on this one ship. There's insect beings, there's bird beings, there's a couple of reptilians. The original Star Wars lasted for 27,000 universal years, but 270,000 Earth years. and it was with the Dracos reptilians, and and so there's two reptilians on the ship that keep to themselves, but they are monitoring their own people that are having lives on Earth, because the way the war ended, which is why sort of I'm involved in advising world leaders, is that I was this little uh, religious leader on a water planet called Nomo. And so I suggested, well, why don't we offer the reptilians that they can take part in the Earth experiment? And immediately, the Federation of Planets people said, no, absolutely not, because they absolutely hated and despised, because billions of people had been killed in these wars, and over thousands of years. And so this went on for another 450 universal years. And finally they said, okay, we'll see, we'll make the offer, thinking that they wouldn't accept it, and they did. And that ended the what is commonly called the Great War. And so that's how that came about. I was um, uh, everybody wants me uh, to help advise them because of the success I had in getting the reptilians to agree.
Well, back in 2015, you predicted contact by the Pleiadians.
Yeah.
Did they ever show up?
No, the that was put on hold. The Palladians were originally going to land in Russia, and it it just didn't happen. Um, we That's because of Putin getting getting involved, and originally it was going to be because everybody went along with what the Russians were saying, and the Russian people would not worry about the fact that the government was keeping secrets about re-engineering aircraft. They would just take it in stride. Where in the United States, uh, as you've even seen recently, everybody's up in arms with the fact that excuse me, um, with the fact that they are discovering that there's places where these uh, downed aircraft are being re-engineered, and they're spending trillions of dollars, and they won't tell Congress about it, and on and on and on.
How does contact with Antura work? Do you go into some sort of meditative state?
Yeah, with any, I mean, I typically will start with even Gaia, and then I'll go maybe Theo, and or I may start with Gaia and then ask to speak to Creator. Creator says that uh, a creator can have trillions of conversations going on all at the same time. So all you have to do is just ask to speak to Creator, and Creator will be instantly there and will answer even the most trivial questions for you. And that in the future, every single human on Earth will communicate with Creator. That's in our future. So um, so yes, I just use a method. It even kind of dates back all the way to Dick Sutphin. And Dick Sutphin, if you are a beginner in doing this, Dick Sutphin has a audio that you can buy on Amazon or wherever, and it's called Spirit Guides. And Spirit Guides is great for beginners because he takes you down and very safely, surrounding you with a bubble of white light, and then is quiet for 3 or 5 minutes. I don't know how long. I've never timed it. Could be 10, um, where you can ask some questions, and then uh, Richard will slowly bring you back up after that. And you can play that over and over and over again until you get so comfortable that you don't need the recording, that you can just do it on your own.
When you say he takes you down, does that mean he guides you through a meditative or hypnotic
Yes,
state?
into an light altered state. It's something you can come out immediately. I mean, it really can't. And but it just centers yourself so that you're not, thinking, oh, well, I got to do the laundry, or oh, I've got to go to the grocery store, or whatever it happens to be. Um, I typically do my sessions on Saturday morning, somewhere around 3 a.m., in order to make sure that my mind is completely quiet and I can receive these answers to my questions, because I feel like I have a responsibility to the people that are subscribing to this free newsletter, to answer the questions that they send to me from all over the world accurately. And and even at that rate, I tell people at the very top of the newsletter, I I estimate that I'm only 80 to 90% accurate. Theo tells me that no one doing this work is ever 100%, and just accept that fact. And so I work the best I can to be as accurate as possible.
Do you ever receive predictions like from Gaia, what's going on with the earth?
Oh, absolutely.
What has
And
Gaia revealed? What's coming?
well, okay, here we get into something that I wish um, I didn't have. I almost I wish I'd never heard it, but in 2026, Gaia says that she has been given permission by our souls to have great earth movements on the North American West Coast, all the way from Tijuana to through the Aleutians. And these great earth movements will be 7, 8s, and 9s. And they will not just be one or two and have some aftershocks lower. There's going to be, these will last for like a whole year. And also it will open a vent in the Yellowstone volcano, and Yellowstone will erupt as a super volcano with a 250-mile kill radius, and with an ash cloud that will travel eastward across the United States and lower Canada all the way to Chicago, and will create a mini um, ice winter. And because the ash cloud will not allow the sun to shine for months on end, and these great earthquakes, I'm told, will cause the uh, uh, the earth to uh, just uh, uh, go beyond what it's ever happened before, and it's it's something that will continue on for months on end.
Yellowstone is supposed to erupt in 2026 or 2027?
2026.
Yeah, if that thing blows, you're right. It's a super volcano and it will be
Yes,
massive.
massive, and and supposedly worldwide, okay, because of all these massive earthquakes and the tsunamis they're going to create, um, the casualties, and we're talking about deaths, because I just, redefined that just in the last week or two. Um, the casualties will be 200 million worldwide, and 60 million of that will be from the North American West Coast. That people will refuse to believe that they need to get out of the way, they need to move to the east, and they will stay there because their sole contract is to experience these earthquakes or the supervolcano.
You said that the ash cloud will travel 250 miles? Because I thought I've seen
No, no,
online 500 miles.
no. The ash cloud will go several thousand miles all the way to Chicago. The the explosion um, from the uh, uh, the supervolcano explosion will be have a kill radius of 250 miles each way from the center of Yellowstone.
How confident do you feel about this prediction?
Well, I've told people I would prefer, I wish, I wish this wasn't true, but if you've noticed, things are already starting to heat up. Around Mount Rainier recently, they had 10,000 small little earthquakes, and then of course there is the Berkeley earthquake 4.3 that just occurred as we, you know, uh, that just occurred uh, recently. And so these things are already starting to move. And Gaia says that for the rest of 2025, she will not have any earthquakes larger than 5.0 to 5.3. But then in the first 3 months of 2026, she's going to ramp that up to earthquakes that'll be 6.0 to 6.5, plus obviously hundreds of, if not thousands, of smaller earthquakes. And then, and I asked just recently, I asked, well, what about April? You hadn't mentioned April. She said April is still, you can still escape, but the way she put it was the door is closing. Okay. And then starting in late May and June comes the really huge ones. She's going to take down all the mountains surrounding um, Los Angeles, as an example. And so, how are people going to even escape Los Angeles if all the mountains are down, which means all the roads will be destroyed? And she says that will allow the Pacific fronts that have been blocked from coming across the southern United States, and they will be able to cross directly across the southern United States, and suddenly Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and far west Texas will start having 30 to 35 inches of rain per year, and in our section of North Texas and farther down, we'll be getting 60 inches of rain per year, and it will become subtropical.
Now, Gaia is doing this intentionally, or she's just aware that this is happening to the Earth?
Well, it's sort of like two things. Number one is that when we agreed to have lives on Earth, we agreed to experience every single thing that the Earth has. And that includes earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Because there are so many people alive on Earth, everyone is actually having what's called overlapping lives. I mean, I've had 6 or 8 or 10 overlapping lives in the 20th and 21st centuries. Right now, I have an overlapping life with with a lady working in the Pentagon, and uh, when there's a woman president in 2032 or so, she's going to become a main advisor for that woman president. So these are overlapping lives. I've got overlapping lives with L. Ron Hubbard and um, and Holly Selassie um, that have taken place in the 20th century, and they're actually future lives for me. So gets very complicated, but everybody, because there are only so many souls that volunteered or were able to have a high enough vibrational level in order to do this. Um, we're all it's all, as Theo calls it, it's all hands on deck, and everybody had to have multiple lives during this time period.
That's interesting that you have had parallel lives with L. Ron Hubbard and Haile Selassie. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right because those
Yeah,
are two
yeah.
prominent figures in
Yes,
history.
in this
What were
life,
you doing with those two?
well, in this life, um, the person that will be L. Ron Hubbard is a friend of mine that we used to live across the street from each other. I won't give any more information. I've given some more in my newsletter if somebody wishes to read it. But so in our next life, I'm going to be his mother, and we're going to have a very loving relationship. But after that, he's going to be L. Ron Hubbard, and I'm going to be his second wife, Sarah Northrup, and I'm going to help him write the uh, what's the name of the book?
Dianetics?
Yeah, and I'm going to help him write the book. But supposedly, because this is the future life, and you can change all these things that are happening, we're going to write a nicer book, a more gentle book than than is in is in uh, effect right now. So that's my next life with him. Then then my wife's next life, uh, and I need to go back when I was inspired to create the Gentle Way was 12,700 years ago during Atlantean times, and because they were headed towards annihilating each other, I and 25,000 of my followers migrated uh, from Poseidia, mostly Poseidia, and went to Egypt to resettle. And there was a Egyptian princess that in her meditations were told that we were nice people because the Egyptians were worried that the Atlanteans were going to come and subjugate them as they had in the past. And so she convinced whoever that we were nice people and we were able to settle. That Egyptian princess is my wife now. And in her next life, she's going back to about 12,500 years ago as an early version of the pharaohs, which, of course, they can't talk about in Egypt because of the Muslim faith. Excuse me. And uh, I'm going to be her advisor. Now, that life is a past life for me. Okay. I've already had that one, but this is a future life for her. And then in the next life after that, I believe, is going to be as Haile Selassie, and I'll be Queen Menon, his, who had 10 children and was his main advisor for his life then.
How is it possible that past, current, and future lives are all happening at the same time?
Yeah. Well, that's the way, that's the way it was set up so that all of our lives, our life right now can affect our past lives and our future lives. So it's that space-time continuum that creator set up where time is just a construct. And so time is happening all the way to the end of our lives. So in 7,000 years, all of all of us will have had all of our lives. And I'm told that I'm going to be in charge of a cleanup crew of only 200 or 300 people. And by that time, we will have the ability to um, to actually change things physically, and our cleanup crew will return Earth to its pristine original condition. And we will then leave, and we will finish our lives on other decent planets, and that'll be the end. 7,000 years.
If we get back to Gaia, is she facilitating these earth changes in order to cleanse the earth?
Well, certainly she needs these earth changes. She's been telling me for years,
Why does
years.
she need these changes?
Um, First of all, to give the land a rest. She's been telling me for years to get people to move away from the coast. That, thousands of years people have been living on these coasts. And the last time there's been three major times where the oceans of the world rose, and that was 30,000 years ago when the Atlantean continent sank because they were sitting on the mid-continent ridge, and there was a line of volcanoes that all blew up at the same time, leaving just a few islands here and there, including Poseidon and Aaron below it. And then and then 12,500 years ago, oh, and that the seas rose 160 feet or so at that time because of the displacement of the continent. The next time happened 12,500 years ago when the people on Aaron did a Pearl Harbor type attack on Poseidon using ray guns and melting the very land that people stood on along with the people. 1 million people died that day, and the oceans rose 45 feet, and that's actually when Noah, the story about Noah took place. It didn't happen 3 or 4 thousand years ago, and then the final time was 7,500 years ago when I was a religious leader that helped um, convince uh, my leaders to go ahead and drop a couple of hydrogen bombs on other countries on the continent of Mu, and it took me 85 lives to balance that one, and we destroyed that, and the oceans of the world rose 172 or so feet, and now coming up next year, over the year, the oceans will rise 3 feet.
Are there any predictions that were made to you in the past that have come true that you have validated?
Sure.
Can you share some with us?
Gosh. um, Honestly, I, I don't try to look back at these. I've asked thousands of questions, and I just pass it along, and it's I don't worry about it. It's it's things and probably some of my readers that have been with me a really long time and have read all my newsletters can say, oh yeah, Tom said this was going to happen and that was going to happen and it did, and so on. I don't I don't try and look at it that way. I just pass along what I've been told, and you know uh, not worry about it. You'd have to go and read them yourself.
Has any one of these contacts ever revealed to you the history of humanity, and did we come here from another planet, or are we a result of evolution?
No, we all volunteered for the Earth experiment, and we all had lives on these other planets. We came from all sorts of planets. So, in my case, I was an amphibian. I'd had 100,000 lives on Nomo, the water planet, and so I had reached a vibrational level that I could volunteer for the Earth experiment. So and everybody had to reach a certain vibrational level in order to be able to qualify for the Earth experiment.
Some of my near-death experiencers claim to have gone to a water planet during their NDE.
Mhm.
Can you tell us about this one?
Which one you mean?
The water planet that you're from.
Oh, Nomo is the water planet. Only maybe at most 10% of it has some land, but there are beings that are not amphibian that live, uh, are from Nomo, but there there are other amphibian worlds. There are, as I mentioned before, there are bird beings and all sorts of beings. Antura, a member of a four-man team of first contact uh, people that specialize in just normal people. There are people on his ship that specialize in governments and specialize in scientists. So, but his team of four only specialize in normal kind of people.
What do you see as the next step for humanity in terms of open contact with ETs, and should we prepare ourselves in any way?
Okay. Um, the ETs, when they saw that this free energy they'd given the Atlanteans in in the form of crystals and the free energy they had given the Lemurians, both of them had turned into weapons of war. And when they saw that was going to happen several hundred years uh, in advance, because they could, go through time. They're not limited to time as we are, and we won't be able to travel in time for about 4,000 years. Um, they they established what's called the Earth Directive, and the Earth Directive basically said they sink or swim. We're not going to, advise them and give them all these things, these neat things that we could. They're going to have to learn how to advance themselves. And of course, one of the things that that was done for us is that our time, Earth time, is 10 times faster than universal time. So we're on a schedule to quickly try and catch up with everybody else. And that's what we're doing. But it's all going to be on us. The ETs are going to sit back. They're going to continue to monitor all these negative energies and even the tall whites. Uh, if people have read anything recently about the tall whites, Charles Hall had mentioned in his books that he lived with the tall whites for 3 years in the Area 51 area. And I just recently asked um, about the tall whites and were they there after humans or before? And the tall whites have had a base on Earth for several thousand years, and when the government found out about it, that's when they built a military base around them to protect them, and at the same time not to let anybody know that there were actually ETs living on Earth.
Have you faced skepticism about your claims? And if so, how do you respond to it?
Well, as an example for 2026, um, my book, Conversations with Gaia, Volume One, is there. It is. I barely held it in frame. Has 83 pages in Chapter Two devoted to 2026. In that chapter, I give people 5 things that they can do. First thing is to do absolutely nothing until these precursor quakes start happening in the first 3 months of the year. And and at that time, they've got to decide, well, you know, where am I going to move? How far to the east or whatever? And the people in Yellowstone are going to have to move to the southwest. Um, and then I give 4 other things like um, one of the things they could do would be to fly to like Dallas Fort Worth and buy a travel trailer and just park it there. And um, because they don't want to take it back to, say, California, where they might not be able to get it out. So that would be one thing. Another thing would be to buy a house and rent it out, you know, either for a short-term rental or whatever. And then if this doesn't come true, in a couple of years, because the houses in like my area keep going up, 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 uh, they can sell it and make a profit on it. So there are things that they can do, or they can just go ahead and move and not worry about it. So there's several options that people can do to see if this is actually going to happen. I'm telling you, I'm starting to see, and don't take my word for it. Anybody can go to YouTube. There's a guy that has a daily show called The Earth Master, all one word, and he talks about these earthquakes. And I just saw one today where he's really concerned after the Berkeley earthquake, um, that it was a foreshock, meaning that there's going to be a larger shock earthquake on the Hayward fault. So people are starting to notice this, and I noticed that uh, the people that subscribe to him, uh, that number has grown over the last couple of months as people start noticing these smaller earthquakes that are happening.
Have you heard anything about the New Madras fault?
It's not going to happen.
Wasn't there an earthquake recently somewhere around New York?
Yes, there was small one,
Yeah.
but New York's going to have their problems because of the 3 foot rise in the ocean level. It's, you know, anybody that lives on the ocean there is going to be flooded.
That will also happen in 2026.
Yeah, but you have to understand when they start happening, there'll be a chunk of land that will sink, and maybe it'll rise an inch or two, and another chunk, and another chunk. So by the end of the year, supposedly it will have risen 3 feet.
Your first book that you ever written was The Gentle Way.
Yes.
What is the main takeaway the reader should get from that book?
I think, well, first of all, people should start with mundane requests, and the little things, the parking spots, and drive to work, and meetings with clients. I had one lady that said that she was a waitress, and she requested benevolent outcome for good tips, and she got more than she had ever gotten that day. So I mean, there are very positive ways that can help you. And also, you can request it for your drives. I've had a couple of times in the past where, well, as an example, I flew into Nice for a TV market in Cannes, and I had 2 big trunks, so I had to rent a car. And on my drive from Nice to Cannes, which is about 30 kilometers or so, um, this little French car zoomed past me, going 90 to nothing, lost control, hit the guardrail in the middle of the freeway, and bounced back, stopped. I had plenty of time to slow down, and creep around him. Um, and because I don't speak French, I didn't speak French well at that time. I speak less these days because I haven't kept in practice. Um, I just creeped around, and there were other people that were helping him that uh, from his little fender bender. Then I had I know there was a girl that was walking in California along a street, and some guys started following her in a van, and so the girl requested a benevolent outcome, and right then a group of people came out of a house, and the guys in the van drove off. And she said, "I know that protected my daughter." There was a lady that had just moved to a farm in Kansas, and lo and behold, there was a tornado bearing down, and she requested a benevolent outcome, grabbed the kids to put in uh, in a safe place, and the tornado went right over them. So this really does work, and it works perfectly with your soul contract. And that's, um, now all of these are MBOs for you. I call them MBOs. And if you have a kid, or if you have a hard time saying benevolent, some people, if English is the second language, um, just say MBO. It Theo says it works.
What does that stand for? I'm assuming the BO is benevolent outcome.
Yeah, most benevolent outcomes.
Okay.
When I was trying to put together a saying that everyone could say, uh, you know, I, I request a BO. That doesn't sound very good. So I added most benevolent outcomes, and that's how it began.
Well, should we request both a most benevolent outcome for our soul contract, but on top of that,
Hmm.
an MBO for whatever we're doing at the time? Like, for
Doing
example,
doing that day, whatever.
I'm gonna do
Yeah.
this now. I'm gonna request an MBO for this video.
Okay. Great. It works. And so and there are times when MBOs don't work. And I'll give you a really big one. Oh, but don't let me forget to tell you about a lawsuit afterwards. Um, but there was this um, time where a friend of mine that actually lived only a block or two from my house in Dallas at one point, but before I moved there, and he wound up sailing around the world and wound up going up the Seine River and docking his boat and meeting his wife. And so they lived in Paris, until his death, not too long ago. And so he uh, was able to get the rights to some spy novels from World War II by the English writer by the name of Cheney. And so for 2 years, I worked my tail end off trying to raise money for a series of smaller films, but spy films based on this guy's books. And every time I would get close to um, to raising the money. I mean, even in Paris one time, we had someone from Germany and someone from England and French. Um, and each time it would fall apart for the strangest reasons. And so finally I asked Theo, I said, Theo, I've been requesting benevolent outcomes for this, and it's never happened. Why? And I'd even, gone to Prague and gone to St. Petersburg, Russia, and all over the place trying to raise money. And Theo said, Tom, if you'd gone down that path, you would not have reached or will reach the number of people that you will with your books and the videos that you're going to do. And so there are times when that is not on your sole contract. And if you're requesting benevolent outcomes, it'll keep you on your sole contract. Now, one of the biggest MBOs that I ever had to make, I uh, made a deal um, uh, with a lab in Los Angeles. They had confiscated about 200 or 250 Spanish language movies because of non-payment. And so um, I made a deal to see if I could sell those or license those, and we would split the profits. So I went to a Spanish language uh, satellite channel that at that time was located in Fort Worth, Texas, and made a contract with them where they would, because they were all in Spanish, they needed to be looked at to see who the director was, who the stars were, and and they needed to do a copyright search to make sure that these films were in the public domain, because most of the time, a lot of times films just aren't registered in the United States. So did that, and so one day I contact him and say, "Hey, uh, how's it coming?" And he said, "Oh, we're showing these films." And I said, "You are?" I said, "Did you uh, do copyright searches?" "Oh no, we'll just take them off the air if somebody complains." Well, we got sued. The channel got sued for $5 million, and I got sued for $1 million, and another distributor got sued for $1 million. And so this went on to the point where finally we did a conference in Houston, and I was requesting benevolent outcomes all the way, all along, because I couldn't afford $1 million. And and so in this conference, um, we wound up the the channel paid like 500,000. The other distributor paid like 100,000 to these uh, Mexican producers, and we paid zero. So, MBOs can be really, really helpful at times.
Can you request an MBO for somebody else?
Yes, you do it a little different. In my first book, I called them living prayers. Okay, that was wrong. In the second, uh, the General Way book I did called The Story Continues, I believe. Um, then I changed it to benevolent prayer, and I made it really simple. I say, I ask any and all beings to blank, 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 thank you. Okay, so as an example, you could say, I ask any and all beings to aid and assist uh, the people in Gaza to be able to be fed and to give them homes. I mean, you can say it for anything that's happening in the world, earthquakes, you name it, and and other people. Uh, uh, we just said a benevolent prayer for um, our daughter and son-in-law that were having to drive all the way from Plano, Texas to Georgia because his father had just died, and they had to go by car due to a number of reasons. So you could say something like that. I ask any and all beings to aid and assist in uh, in getting them a safe drive for their trip from Plano to Georgia and return.
Do you think that the beings that are out there want to help us and they're just waiting for us to ask?
Well, certainly your own guardian angels. Keep in mind, They volunteered. These golden light beings volunteered for the job, and they take care of you on every single one of your lives on Earth. Now, the life that you and I are having right now, there are 12 Toms, you know, and 12 Jeffs. These are all parallel lives because our souls want to have the biggest bang for the buck, and so they have 12 of us that are all born at the same time at different frequencies. So the higher frequencies have easier lives, and the lower frequency have much harder lives. We're on timeline 6, the middle frequency. So we can have harder lives and easier lives too. So um, that's something that uh, our souls want us to experience, and uh, our these lives are divided up into fours and subdivided into twos.
If people want to find out more about your books, where should they go?
All of my books are on Amazon, and just just have to uh, you know enter Tom T. Moore, author. They're pretty easy to find, and there's 8 books. Uh, 2 of them just came out in May of this year, and I'm still working on probably another 1 or 2 that'll come along as we go. But so far, we've got the Gentle Way 1, 2, and 3, and 4, with the Gentle Way 4 um, being benevolent outcomes for our animal pets and friends. And then we have first contact conversations with an ET for all of my stories with Antura up through about 2013 when that book was published. And uh, and Atlantis and Lemuria, all their history goes all the way back to the start of the Earth experiment, and how the ETs were creating all sorts of different bodies to see what would work with these negative energies, and uh, and then the latest 2 books, conversations with Gaia, volumes 1 and 2. When my publisher first put the book together, it was 650 pages, so we decided to do it as 2 volumes to make it easier on everyone.
What is your website so people can find out more about your information as well as your newsletter?
Sure. It's www.thegentlewaybook.com. The reason it's just book, I didn't think I'd be able to ever write more than 1 book after Reveals the Mysteries told me I was supposed to write a book.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
No, I only the website, and honestly, I'm still busy with my international film distribution business, so I squeeze this all in. Of course, I use MBOs in my business too, naturally, and uh, and the newsletters, because they're typically 10 to 13 pages. It takes me a couple of days to do those, and so I keep pretty busy.
Do you have a contact form on your website if people want to ask you questions?
No, they'll find my email uh, address on the newsletters down at the bottom, and they just can ask. But I do ask that they first go to to where all my newsletters are archived. There's a search box at the top. You can enter a word or phrase and see what I've already asked, if I have asked about that, and go from there.
Tom, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
You can absolutely make this life better by starting to request MBOs. You can make all your past lives and future lives better by saying the benevolent prayer, which some people call the forgiveness prayer that I mentioned earlier. And it's listed on the website and also has been listed recently in my newsletters. If you say that every day, and you can then, if you are on the West Coast or somewhere close to uh, the volcano that's going to erect, you can say, I can request, I you can say, I request a most benevolent outcome for the perfect place for me to live. Thank you. And you will be guided. Okay. But there will be people that will refuse to do that because they've never experienced earthquakes or volcanic eruptions, and it's on their soul contract to experience that.
I noticed that you said thank you at the end of that. Should you do that as well with every MBO request?
I didn't at first. Okay. I just said it. But these, if you start saying them enough and you start seeing these amazing things that happen, even getting to meetings on time by saying, I request a compression of time until 2 p.m. Thank you. Um, when all these things are happening in your life that are really good, you just feel compelled to say thank you. Uh, you know, your guardian angel is going to do it or not, depending on what your soul contract is. But I really feel I need to say thank you.
Tom, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.